So how do we then optimize all of these various digestive juices, enzymes, bile acids, hydrochloric acid in the stomach?
Yeah.
Set us on the right path.
Yeah. So, and this is, so we had developed a product to help with this, right? And this was a selfish wish of mine because, as you probably know, I take a lot of care of my digestive system, my microbiome, and so on, and understand the implications of them. But one thing that was absolutely missing in my own personal regimen was the use of bitters. Like most people, I don't enjoy bitter food so much. I might have some arugula and some dandelion root or something like that from time to time, but I generally don't enjoy bitter foods like most people don't. And so then you start digging into, well, what is the importance of bitter foods, right? And then what you come to find out is that there are bitter taste receptors. And I know the fact that they call them taste receptors is a bit of a misnomer because now you think they're primarily on your tongue, but they're not. So you've got some on your tongue, but you've got them throughout the digestive tract, right? So your stomach, your pancreas, your small intestine, your large intestine, your liver, even your immune cells in your gut have bitter receptors on them. Wow. Right? So there's a myriad of activities that bitter receptors are responsible for, and it accounts for almost 50% of the digestive signaling and drive to release pancreatic enzymes, bile, hydrochloric acid, to move the bowels, to activate GLP-1s, PYY, CCK. All of these are hormones that activate fat burning, satiety, insulin sensitivity, and so on, right? 50% of the digestive signaling is supposed to come from bitter receptor binding, and we have no bitters in our food anymore, right? So this is why that Rome criteria study shows that 40% of people worldwide have these common digestive issues. We're simply not triggering any sort of stimulus to digest food, right? On top of that, our meal hygiene is horrific. And I don't mean cleanliness. What I mean is how we are designed to eat, right? We are designed, our ancestors spent a lot of time and effort gathering food and assembling a meal, right? They didn't have the luxury of quick things. And so imagine all the energy and risks they put into going out there and getting food, whether it's hunting, gathering, killing things, and so on. Then they bring it all together, and then they sit down. And when they sit down, the work is done, right? They're no longer in that sympathetic drive mode. They're now in the parasympathetic mode. And they're sitting down, and then they're actually enjoying the smells of the food, the look and the feel and the taste. And remember, they likely really needed the food at the time, right? So we have the luxury of just overabundance of food. So we don't go through that kind of fasting, starvation, that mouth-watering sensation. Those are all called the cephalic responses. So we're supposed to have a strong desire for food. When we see food and we smell food, we trigger the cephalic response.
Cephalic means head, right?
Cephalic means head, yeah, exactly. What that means is that there's a connection between your eyes, your nose, your auditory and olfactory system, and your head, and then your brain turns on digestive processes. The biggest thing that the cephalic response does is increases salivation, right? If you have a dog and cat, you put that bowl of food in front of them, they're going to start drooling, right? And we do it too. You probably do it before Korean barbecue as you're sitting there waiting. Yeah. And so that cephalic response gets us ready to accept the food. And also we have to be in a parasympathetic state, right? Because that's called the rest and digest state for that reason, because we can't activate digestive function in the sympathetic state when we're running and busy and all that. But what do most of us do? We don't sit down and actually, appreciate the food and really enjoy the meal. We are rushed, right? We're eating on the go. We're eating quick. So we're supposed to chew a number of times. We're supposed to allow the cephalic response to get it started. And then we're supposed to have bitter compounds in our diet because the bitter compounds will activate about 50% of the digestive process, the release of hydrochloric acid to begin with, right? So we can make enough stomach acid. Then once a food is in the stomach, the emptying of the gastric system, so moving it into the small bowel. Once in the small bowel, the release of pancreatic enzymes, of bicarbonate, of bile, and then the movement of the actual food. And then the dampening of the immune system, because we don't want the immune system to attack the food. Anti-inflammatory effects of the bitter compounds. And then on top of that, it also activates all of these peptides, receptors like GLP-1, PYY, and all that to tell our brain we've got enough food, stop producing the hunger hormone. Let's activate the metabolic system to turn on fat burning, to turn on detoxification. Bitter compounds upregulate phase 1 and phase 2 of the liver's detox system, right? So we're cleaning up the system as we eat. All of these wonderful things that are supposed to happen, we don't do any of it, right? Starting with the cephalic response, starting with the meal hygiene of being able to sit in that parasympathetic state, chew, be calm while we're eating, and then we have no bitters.
Wow.
Right? So hence, we have a myriad of digestive issues that are so common.
I mean, it makes perfect sense. And correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of these bitter compounds would have naturally been in the food supply prior to, I would say, the advent of modern agriculture, where many of these compounds have been effectively wrung from foods, right? Like our modern vegetables are probably a fraction as bitter as they used to be, because bitter is generally, as you alluded to, it's not a taste that most people generally appreciate. And even fruits, like fruit is being bred for, artificially selected for its sugar content, its sweetness, and the bitter compounds that would have otherwise naturally been present, I'm assuming, are being diluted by sugar and all this stuff. So on top of the fact that we're always eating on the go, and people are generally consuming fewer fruits and vegetables than is recommended, the fruits and vegetables themselves have become depleted of these important compounds.
That's exactly right. And you think about all our grains, right? Grains naturally have bitter compounds within them, but they've bred them out so that they increase the starchy carbohydrate content that actually has a more sweet palate, that has a more fat mimetic quality, right? So it has a higher gel formation. And like you said, the fruits have been bred to be more and more sweet over time. Strawberries and most berries and all that tend to have bitter components to it.
Well, consider anybody listening to this who's ever tried a crab apple.
Yeah.
Compare that to like a modern Honeycrisp apple.
Yeah.
Like a crab apple is way more bitter.
Totally.
And you can actually go to Google Images and look up ancestral versions of various plants, whether corn, watermelon, broccoli didn't exist.
Right.
Broccoli's a man-made creation, right? Probably a tiny proportion as bitter as whatever its ancestral plant was. So yeah, this is fascinating.
Yeah, and so talking about the evolutionary significance of bitter receptors, right? Because it's so interesting when you think about, like I mentioned, 40 to 50% of the digestive signals to release all these important digestive secretions, to move the bowel, to activate the immune system in the right way, to activate the satiety signals and the metabolic signals, we've outsourced all of that to bitter compounds to turn on for us, right? We can't turn them on ourselves. So why would that be? And it signifies the omnivorous nature of our ancestors, because they foraged and they ate things, and some things they ate were toxigenic. And virtually every toxin that exists is a very bitter astringent compound, right? So that's one of the reasons why we have bitter taste receptors in our tongue. It's to activate this spitting out action, right? If you eat something that's actually toxigenic. And then there was a slow evolution from that, where if you ate something that was marginally toxic, what your body would want is would want to slow down the digestive process, create more digestive secretions, activate the immune system, and activate the detox mechanisms in the body, right? That is in case it needs to protect you from that potential compound. And so there's this evolution of bitters and bitter receptors forming throughout the digestive tract as a way and a signal and a checkpoint to understand where we are in the digestive process, right? So your brain can respond adequately to where you are in the digestive process. The activation of bitter receptors in the digestive tract sends signals, neurological signals, up to the brain through the vagus nerve to tell the brain, okay, this is a time to stop producing the hunger hormone ghrelin. This is a time to secrete adiponectin, which is a satiety hormone that also activates something called AMPK, which activates fat burning throughout the body. It sucks in sugars through insulin receptors, right? And makes cells take up glucose, so you don't get a high amount of glucose spike after your meal. It activates the immune system to protect and watch out for potentially harmful things. And then it activates phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 detox within the liver itself. So it's like this beautiful orchestrated system that requires signaling in the gut to go to the brain. The brain doesn't independently know where you are in digestion, right? And that's maybe the biggest misnomer. So if we ate food that has no bitters in it at all, the food's in the stomach, the food's trying to move into the small intestine, the brain wouldn't really know where we are in that process. It wouldn't necessarily even know where the food is, and wouldn't know when to release the adiponectin, when to stop the ghrelin production, which is one of the reasons why people overeat a lot, right? Is you can have an overeating as a result of endorphin release, which is what we get when we have meals that we absolutely love, but we also don't generally overeat, right? We don't overeat typical meals,
right? Because
we don't have that excitement, that endorphin, that
dopamine.
You said the dopamine release, right? And you said you do it with your brothers, for example, right? And same thing with me. If I'm going to like a lunch at an Indian restaurant, if I'm by myself, the likelihood of me over ordering and overeating is very small, right? If you're going with your friends and your family, it's a celebratory thing. It's dopamine all over the place, right? It's that endorphins all over the place. So that's going to kind of overcome some of the other chemistry around digestion.
Also, brothers like farting on each other.
Exactly, yes. And there's challenges involved in who can eat as much, and so on. And so that's a social thing, which is different. But on a day-to-day basis, for most meals, if you don't get the adequate satiety signals, you will overeat without knowing that you're overeating. And that's one of the foundations of why this country is so overweight and obese, right? So we're eating these calorically dense foods that are non-nutritive, that don't have any components within them that signal to the digestive system that we have enough of it. So and it's highly palatable, right? So we're stoking dopamine through the experience of the food, and so that's getting you excited, makes you want to eat more, and there's no counteracting signals coming from the food itself through the bitter compounds, right? So we've really set ourselves up for failure metabolically, because not only have we removed bitters from our digestive from our foods, we're also created foods that are hyperpalatable and very calorically dense, with no nutritive value.
Hey, if you like that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.